This is great. I mean, my name is down as the honoree, but it's about us, our collective mission and effort to make our state more competitive. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. And so those of you that can participate, we would encourage you to do so. And be sure to keep an eye on our website at aaccnj.com for other activities. So we're going to move right into the next panel. I see my good friend, do we say happy birthday now, Mayor? In a couple days. Give it up for our mayor, Honorable Ross Baraka of the city of Newark. He has birthday time is right around the corner. So we're going to ask the panel to come up right now. Mayor Ross Baraka, if you could join us. Sam, I just call her Sam D. She's President and Associate Builders and Contractors of New Jersey, one of our longtime partners. Give her a hand. The Honorable Brittany Timberlake, Assemblywoman, State of New Jersey. She's an amazing, amazing woman. I'm just glad to know her as a friend. And Eric Poe, he is, here he is over here. Eric is from Cure Insurance. Now, Eric, what's the title? CEO. That's what I thought, but he is the CEO of Cure Insurance here in New Jersey. So let me tee this up. We're going to ask them all to give a brief introduction of themselves in a second here. But here we have private sector, in terms of Eric and Sam, what they do, and then municipal government at the highest level, because we have the largest city in the state represented here in Ross Baraka. And then Brittany oversees one of the committees as a part of the legislature that's going to really be driving economic opportunity. So we're going to touch upon consumer, disposable income, ways in which some of our folks can get a little relief, because when you read this book, the data is clear. And all economic indications clearly put black people at the bottom. That's right. At the bottom. And so we say this because if you don't know where we are, you can't help us get in a better place. These individuals every day on the front lines, we're talking, they're listening. They're talking to us, we're listening, trying to come up with strategies to get black people in a better place. But we cannot do it without all people. And that's the differentiator of the African American Chamber of Commerce. We have a mission for the 1.2 black people in New Jersey, over 80,000 black businesses, but we realize that resources, opportunities, and information reside on the other side of the balance sheet. We largely occupy the liability side of the state's balance sheet. But if we can have better integration and conversation with the other side of the balance sheet, we all win. All right? Give yourselves a round of applause. So, I'm going to start with you, Sam, and we're going to a brief introduction, and then we'll come back with some questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sam D. Almeida. I'm with the Associated Builders and Contractors of New Jersey. I've been president and CEO there for almost a year. We're going on my one-year anniversary, which feels like a lifetime and a blink of an eye and one swift move. We are a national association that represents 21,000 contractors nationwide, but we are the largest chapter of that association in New Jersey. We have 1,200 members in New Jersey and represent 78% of the construction workforce in New Jersey that is non-union contractors. We employ in excess of 200,000 workers in the state of New Jersey that are open shop, and we're responsible for over $20 billion in New Jersey construction annually. Thank you, John. I'm humbled to be here, and I really appreciate you asking me to do this.
Thank you. So when Sam says open shop, 17% or so of contractors in New Jersey are union. So that means 83% are non-union. And so we have nothing against the trade, so let's not send that message out here. But what we are saying is the minority is running the majority of opportunity. And there has to be we have to have some mediation of that where more, opportunities fall on the other side. Mayor.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be with you, John. I think you do great work. You know that. And
I think you do great work as well.
no, absolutely. I'm mayor of the 40th mayor of the city of Newark. 2 terms in the middle of my 3rd. Feel like I've been the mayor since I was 12. It's been a long push, and obviously we're trying to do whatever it is that we can in a predominantly black and brown city. As the state is going to be predominantly black and brown in a minute, what we can to make sure that we provide as much opportunity for our folks as we can, as many chances as we can and can get them, and make Newark an example, a model.
Absolutely.
For what happens around the country, and make it a welcome place for immigrants, for African Americans, for Latinos all over the country to come and settle in the city of Newark. If nobody else wants you, we'll take you in Newark. We'll help you grow and be successful and prosper and expand. And that's what we want to do. We want to make Newark that place, and I think we are on the road to doing that. And, with conversations like this, we'll continue to make that happen.
Thank you, Mayor. Recently, this mayor here is recognized nationally. A few days ago, he was in Washington, D.C., giving testimony. A few years, you may recall, the city of Newark was kind of highlighted and criticized for the water quality. This mayor took ownership. See, it's different when you hear these things and you just, passively try to figure out. Just like the data, we have to acknowledge it exists. Just like the water problem, he acknowledged that they had an issue, owned it, put a best practice together, and was recognized recently at the White House. And now he's sharing those best practices with the country. Give him a round of applause. Ms. Timberlake.
Thank you so much for having me. John, your work is so phenomenal throughout the entire state, and I'm very grateful to be able to call you friend. And the mayor just spoke, and he's being incredibly humble. I just want to say, for the record, he is one of the greatest mayors in the United States.
Yes.
I have to say one of the because I got to go home. I don't live in Newark. But not only did he do that with the water in Newark, but he also made several black millionaires in the process while solving the issue. John, you and I became friends while I was working on an ordinance for the county of Essex to bring forward inclusion for women-owned, minority-owned, and black-owned businesses. And we really took the model from Maynard Jackson. And when you say Maynard Jackson, I can look around the room and I see people shaking their heads. People know that name. It is synonymous with creating black wealth and with building up the city of Atlanta. So that's what I see in you. I like to give people their flowers while they're here with us. So yeah. So I'm a policy geek. I love policy, and I believe that the way in which we've been able to move the needle forward for black and brown people has constantly and consistently been with changing laws to erase systemic issues of oppression. I usually focus in the area of economic development as well as housing, because housing is the #1 wealth building tool in America. And if it weren't so, the laws wouldn't have been put in place that were undergirded with federal support to keep black and brown people out of home ownership opportunities. So we still see these, the ramifications of redlining and all of these different things to keep oppression alive. And what I do every single day is take a look at laws and look to create equity in them. So whether or not it's through the Community Wealth Preservation Program, which will help people go down and purchase their home back for 50% owed at the time of sale or foreclosure to preserve their family wealth, to doing the independent investigation in the event someone loses their life during interaction with law enforcement. That one wasn't popular. It happened 2 years before George Floyd, and it only passed the Democratic Assembly by 1 vote. Working alongside the mayor to ask for different task force and things in the area of policing, but then also in contracts for Black and brown people, the strongest environmental justice bill in our country, because we know environmental racism is very real. It sounds like a whole plethora of things, because it is, because our issues are not just centered and focused on one thing. And the policies that I put forward, the laws that I write, tend to be very creative and very collaborative. So we work with coalitions from the grassroots first. I've never been able to win these big battles by fighting in the arena of big politics and big interests. What we do is we go to the grassroots level, because I'm a community advocate that got asked to run for office. We build the coalition of people power, and then we take it up to those high political places and we win. And we've done so several times so far. So I'm so grateful to be here to talk about the state of New Jersey and as it relates to our folk, as my grandmother would say, because it's a very important conversation, John, and thank you for leading it.
Well, we thank you for being here. In their own way, they're confirming why they're here, because these are the types of individuals we need strategically aligned in order to advance our mission. And we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is what this is all about. Kind of an aside. I was in a meeting the other day speaking to some students at Rutgers, and I asked how many of them heard of Thomas Edison. Everyone's hands went up. I said, that's great. What did he invent? They said, oh, the light bulb. But did you know about Lewis Latimer, the son of a slave? He developed the filament. Without the filament, the light bulb would not stay on. That's what diversity and inclusion is. Without including us, we don't have sustainability. We don't get the best outcome. So we collectively have to share those historical examples of who we are and what we've contributed to the greatness of New Jersey and America, because the perception still exists and persists that, we have our hands out. We haven't done anything. We're an entitlement spin. We have to change that, and that's what this conversation is about. One more aside. The Assemblywoman mentioned that the mayor has created Black millionaires. For example, JAS was one of the contracting firms that helped with the water line replacement in Newark. They were also awarded a $7 million contract to do the same in Trenton. See, if you do it in one place and build the experience and the capacity, you can do it in another place. And will trumps policy.
That's it.
He has the will.
That's right.
Brittany has the will. She talked about Essex County, and I'll get to you, Eric. I'm just kind of laying some foundation. I'm still the president, okay? If I got to say that,
That's
right? So I got this, right? So when I met Brittany, she was on the freeholder board of Essex County. And one of the things she led, and I'm a great friend of banks. I'm on the bank board. I'm a former banker. But there's banks that come into communities, they get the deposits, and then they invest and spend the money in every community, but in other words, they're taking our money and underwriting lifestyles and success of other communities. What she did was she said, hold it. If you want to do business in Essex County, you have to be committed to this, that, and the other. So that's where we met, and I knew this was different right then. So we've been friends ever since. Mr. Poe.
Hi, I'm Eric Poe. I'm the CEO of Cure Auto Insurance. We were founded about 32 years ago by my mother and stepfather. Nice. How I got involved with the African American Chamber of Commerce is really about 18 years ago when we learned that there were some major multi-billion-dollar companies like Geico and Progressive that were entering the state using what I consider to be obvious income proxies, such as your educational attainment, your occupation, and whether or not you have a high credit score. And it's been about 18 years. We last session got it past the full Senate, but it's stalled in the Assembly. Basically, we're the only insurance carrier in the state of New Jersey that does not use credit scores, education, occupation. I've been fighting it. I've testified twice on Congress on this issue. I view this as one of those obvious issues that I can't believe we can't get across the desk and have, whether it's a federal law or the state of New Jersey, what was first announced when I spent a lot of time trying to unveil these practices by my industry that clearly prevent opportunity for people economically, and they're simply not even aware of it. So you have to own a car to get a job, unless you're going to be relegated to a bike route or a bus route. The fact that in the state of New Jersey, they require poor people or lower income people to buy insurance to protect assets that they don't even necessarily have, and yet allow every day drivers in this state to pay 2 times the amount for car insurance, not based on their driving record, but solely on the basis of whether or not they have a high-paying white-collar job and went to college. To me, it's absolutely abhorrent, and it needs to stop, and that's how I know John. I've been working on this for 18 years. I was 2 when it came out.
18 years. One would think that when you apply for insurance, they're going to check how long you've been driving, how safe you've been driving. And if you're a good driver, you would think you would get a more favorable rate. They're getting other information and making those decisions. We have to know, part of our mission is all about educating our constituency. Now that you've been educated, ladies and gentlemen, you got to get engaged, because the Senate passed this bill and then the Assembly let it die. I think it was kind of a bait and switch. A wink and a nod, pass it, we'll kill it over here. It's our time not to let this happen. This year, this bill has to get presented, and we have to make sure it gets across the finish line. All right? We agree? All right. It's a great day in Atlantic City. That's what I hear every time I speak to Mayor Smalls. Mayor Smalls, give us a few minutes. Tell the listening audience who you are and what you do.
Yes. Would you shut me off, man? All right, well, first, as he say, it is a great day in the city of Atlantic City. Can we say great day?
Great day.
Yes, great day. I'm Mayor Marty Small Sr. I'm mayor of the great city of Atlantic City. Let me apologize for being dilatory. It was a wet track further south, and I didn't want to pop a wheelie all the way to Somerset on the Parkway. So I told the detail officers to chill, we'll get there. But I've been mayor of Atlantic City for 2 years. Now we have some stability. I was elected by 75% of the vote. I had the dubious task of running 7 elections in 2 years.
Wow.
So I got my first full 4-year term, and I'm focusing on changing the climate and culture, and we had to do that from the inside out. Many initiatives that we are starting should have been in place for government, but that wasn't a priority. And every administration from DC to AC, you budget by your priorities, and that's quality of life. And I believe that the youth and seniors are our 2 most precious resources, and that's what we came in and put a priority in place. The city had no sound recreation program, no youth services, no senior services, no multicultural services or anything, no citywide anti-violence program. We've come in and we've done all of that. Community education is the key. We have to teach the residents the game, and we gave them free game by putting on the Mayor's Office Small Business Academy, an investment cohort, and these are all free programs for Atlantic City. Now we're going to teach the community how to manage their credit, and then we're going to wrap a bow on it, and we're going to give everyone a financial plan. Those are the things that we are doing, and I'm going to break a little news. The second cohort of the Mayor's Office Small Business Academy will be ran by the New Jersey State African American Chamber of Commerce under John Harmon. So my administration believes in partnerships. We're cultivating the community with small business loan programs through the city via CDBG funding. We've engaged banks because we know historically black and brown people, sometimes on their own, they're not prepared. But steps like this, offering it for free for the good people of Atlantic City, we're going to take Atlantic City to the next level, and I look forward to engaging the dialogue further with this esteemed panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Give them all a round of applause. All right. I got a few questions here, and I got a tight timeline. But this is good so far, right? All right, good. So President Obama said, no one is successful by themselves. The African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey is your partner for success. So the first question goes to Sam. I'm going to ask each of you the same question. I'm going to try to keep your answers 2 to 3 minutes. That way we can get a few in. Specifically, what are some of the things that you and your organization have done to favorably impact black people economically? And you've seen some of the data in the book.
Sure. So, John, I'll start with a statistic that both my organization and your organization use quite often. 98% of minority contractors are open shop. They do not belong to unions. That's a pretty astounding statistic that we have to make known. Many people do not know this when we talk to legislators. And the policies right now here in New Jersey have been favoring the construction labor unions. As John said, we have nothing against the unions. You know, I break bread with these people. We have great conversations, but we are looking for an even playing field where all people can bid projects, work in their communities, be able to thrive, and give back. So we've been working on a number of things. Apprenticeship is one of those areas. I'm fortunate to run an organization where we have 15 trade apprenticeships that we offer, and we also offer we call it CORE. It's an apprenticeship program, a pre-apprenticeship program that students go through if they're interested. And now we're not interested in discriminating against anybody. We're looking for anybody that wants to be a part of the construction trade to come and be involved. New Jersey and throughout the country, we're seeing a workforce deficit in this area, and with over 1 million jobs need to be filled in order to sustain the construction that is being done. So we are running this program in areas that have not had these type of programs offered to them before. We're looking at Camden as our kind of test pilot project for this here in New Jersey, and then expanding this to other regions of the state. It will be free for students to participate in. We're looking to run this multiple times a year. It's a 12-week course. We're looking to provide transportation, outfit individuals if they need to be outfitted with, you know, the proper PPE and clothing, and we want to make sure that people are looking at the construction trades as a way to be successful and have a career path where they can make a great living, support their families, and stay here in New Jersey and thrive. John, together we've worked on many pieces of legislation. It feels like project labor agreements are one of those that we've fought against vehemently in the last year, several different times. So
It's not over. Thank you.
No.
And then Camden, Ray Jones is here. I think you may have some conversation. He's on the ground there, and maybe he can help you get that program to the next level. Mayor Ross?
Yep, thank you. I'd just like to start with a story. I was riding around in Newark on a Sunday afternoon, and you know it's against ordinance to do construction work on Sundays. And there was a gentleman, he had to cut a big hole in the ground. And I pulled up beside him, called Kareem Adeem. I said, I know this guy is not supposed to be doing any work right here. He came out of the hole. It was a young black guy, and I spoke to him. I said, you got to close this hole up, bro. Like that. Right. Well, I'll be out. No, you're not doing, this is not legal. You're not supposed to be doing this.
Right.
So we went back and forth. He didn't know who I was.
Right.
Then Kareem Adeem came up and said, hey, bro, that's the mayor. I said, oh, my bad. It's like, my bad, my bad. I said, please close this before you get yourself in trouble, right? Okay. This is one of the guys who's now benefited from the lead service line program.
That's a good story.
Who is making a ton of money after that situation. So we always have a laugh about that initial situation. So everything we do in Newark, because the city is predominantly black and brown, benefits or impacts our community. Our unemployment rate was 14% when I took office. It was at 5% before the pandemic, went to 22% in the middle of the pandemic, and now it's back to 8%.
Wow.
We were listed as, we were listed as one of the fastest cities, top 100 cities in America, recovering from the pandemic. Every contract we write, every development deal we do has caveats in there to make sure you deal with minority developers. We even have one that says you have to have minority co-developers on your project when you're given specific abatements on that project. In fact, we took maybe a half a dozen homes. We took 6 people that were in getting Section 8. We took their voucher, turned it into a mortgage tool, and got them a home. And so they're now homeowners, and they'll be paid their mortgage in 15 years outright. They'll own the home outright in 15 years based on the mortgage we created. Using the land bank, which is the only, thanks to Brittany and folks who fought for it, we're the only land bank in the state that are able to use that to do the specific thing. So without the land bank, we would not be able to have done that, put those people in those homes. So, I mean, from that and everything that we do comes from that, the idea that every opportunity we have to make sure that our people benefit from it. Right. In the last few years, we've cut the ribbons for about a dozen black businesses in the downtown area of the city of Newark.
It's a downtown.
In the downtown area of the city of Newark, about a dozen. And that's not including Marcus BMP or Melba's that's coming from Harlem. So people are coming to Newark, bigger businesses, because they see the opportunity that's there as well. So we're going to continue to push until that happens. I think that we are not even at the halfway mark. There's much more to do, and we have to keep pushing to get those things done. And organizations like this and folks on a statewide level that are not afraid to say that these things should happen will help us expedite it and get the things done even faster than we're doing it now. But we're at it every single day.
That's phenomenal. You can't be afraid. The people that went before us, every day they stepped out of their houses, potentially they were not going to return. And we can name one name after another. We don't have that level of intimidation in our ecosystem today, but yet we're still somewhat afraid. We can't be afraid. Mayor, you've listed a number of initiatives, best practices. It is my hope that you would take those examples back to your communities and ask your mayor, council, and or assembly representative, are you moving this kind of stuff? Because we want this to become the norm. We don't want it to be like an outlier. So let's keep pushing.
Can I say one other thing? So in order for the lead service line project to work, we had to use Invest Newark to give loans to businesses so they can have the balance sheet to be able to compete. You can't bid if you don't have the equipment, and if you can't pay your workers up front, because city government, you're not going to get paid up front. You have to do the work, then get paid. Our businesses can't do that. So we created a vehicle to give them the money up front, and they pay us the money back through the contract, right? So the contract, when they get paid, we just take money off of the contract immediately, so we're not even going back and forth with them about defaulting on their payment. We pay ourselves through the contract that way. And all the affirmative action goals, instead of relying on policy, because the policy is important, trust me, but there are always ways to get around it, and she just talked about how people get around it. But we write it directly in the contract. If you're gonna make $40 million, 10 of those $1 million have to go to these specific people in this specific community for these things.
That's right.
That's a great example. When I was banking in Philadelphia, we did something similar. There were contractors who had credit issues. So what we recommended was, and implemented was, okay, let's take the credit out of the equation. If they can do the work, when they get paid, to the mayor's point, the bank gets their piece. So we did a joint check, their name, the bank's name. This can be done today if they want to do it. So you get paid from the city, you come to the bank with a check, we get our payment, and you get the change. Everybody eats, everybody keeps going. That's how we got to think. Ms. Timberlake.
Sure, thank you. And that was what I remember you telling me when we did that ordinance back in the day, and we put that inside of the law, that it had to be endorsed by both parties so that you couldn't just have one party, running the show and then, throwing peanuts or crumbs down for the supposed minority partner. But, you know, I was given an overview of a lot of the different bills that we've done. Practically every piece of legislation that I put my pen to involves leveraging equity opportunities. I even think of the marijuana bill that passed and legalized marijuana. To be clear, honestly, I really didn't care if we legalized marijuana or not. I really didn't have a dog in the fight. But what I was very clear about is that Black and brown people needed to have a voice at the table. If this were going to be legalized, if this prohibition lift was going to occur, and this billions of dollars of industry, you know, happening right before our eyes, that Black people needed to be able to have a stake in it. So what we tried to do was write in reparations, right? Sometimes without even calling it reparations for people who are coming home. What does that look like for their family in order to make them whole? We try to take a look at that, but what we were able to get were opportunity zones for there to be licenses designated based off of area, so if you impact areas, so if it were Newark was an opportunity zone, East Orange, which is where I live, is an opportunity zone. And then also making sure that there's contract percentages. Now, I'm a little disappointed in how this whole marijuana thing has been rolling out. And I think that we need to, and we've been talking as a Legislative Black Caucus about how many people have actually, who are Black, have actually been able to take advantage of it. And if not, why not? But that was my involvement on the front end, was doing it to make sure that the parameters were there, the lane was created for our businesses to be able to run up the middle and benefit, particularly because it was an issue, and our Black and brown bodies fund governments all throughout our country by being in prison, right? And whenever you criminalize marijuana and we're in prison, we're actually generating money for the governments and our parks and our this that everybody loves to take a look at and comment on how beautiful it is. When you see the way in which that's funded and take a deeper dive, like Michelle Alexander did in one of her books, you'll see why exactly Black people need to be at the forefront of these issues whenever they take something that's illegal and then make it legal. Some other things, of course, have been in the area of housing. Inclusionary zoning, I'm a big supporter of. I believe that we need to have a percentage of affordable housing for units that are built, particularly when the developer is going to the city for a grant, for a pilot, for any type of structure that would, or incentive that would come from or have an impact to the tax base, okay? There needs to be inclusionary zoning. We know that we think of inclusionary zoning as 80-20 typically. I've been making the argument that 80-20 isn't where it's at. It's usually 80% market rate, 20% affordable. And the affordable is available for those who make 80% and below the area median income. My argument has been that we need to do 75-25.
I like that.
The 20% still available for 80% and below AMI, but building in an additional 5 for those who make 120% and below AMI, which is incredibly important for the areas and the cities that we live in, as New Jersey is one of the most expensive states in our nation. So making sure that there is housing affordability and there's not displacement. You know, gentrification itself isn't a terrible word. It just really means the development or the building up of something. It's displacement that becomes bad when our people can no longer afford to live in their neighborhoods. And of course, we, coming off of COVID-19, and hopefully we're coming off of this thing for good, we spent a lot of time, it was myself as well as 150 other organizations, not people, organizations that fought for COVID-19 housing protections to make sure that people weren't foreclosed on or evicted, and then also allocated $250 million to help pay back landlords for back owes that were due, which is currently running through the Department of Community Affairs. These are just a few things. Eric, I met you very early when I went to the Assembly, and I'm pledging before you, we are going to solve that issue. And on my committee, through being the chair, of Commerce and Economic Development, I'm looking forward to hosting a special meeting just centering around the issue of algorithms as it relates to insurance, because it's not just auto insurance, it's also homeowner insurance.
Right.
Being a grassroots, coming out of grassroots, I see you, Roxanne, you know my roots over there with my nonprofit. I used to calculate affordability for people. And I always used $1,200 to calculate homeowner insurance. okay? Because most of our properties were in suburban areas. We were taking people who were low to moderate income and giving them access to Montclair and Bloomfield as homeownership access and landlords. So $1,200. When I went and purchased my own home in my own community, which is actually the blackest community in the state of New Jersey, East Orange, I used $1,200 to calculate the affordability of my husband and I. And guess what? The quotes came back for $10,000. And that's when I realized that there's even redlining within the insurance homeownership industry, because it could be the same house in Montclair or Bloomfield in a suburban area where the homeowner insurance is $100 a month. But if you're going to purchase in an urban area, then that homeowner insurance is practically around $700 a month, therefore making it inaccessible for Black and brown people to enter into. So I look forward to helping with this insurance crisis for auto insurance, but also homeowner insurance too.
Thank God.
All right. So Eric, I'm going to come to you with a specific question around that.
Good stuff.
But again, please look at the data in the book. Don't leave these on the table, because if we have a low disposable income, we can't afford insurance. We can't afford groceries. You can't afford to coexist in a meaningful way in the state. That's what this conversation is about. So Eric, can you drill down a little bit on the numbers? If these proxies were eliminated, what would that mean for low-income people or Black people?
Well, a lot of that data is hidden. So, we've spent the last, I think, 15 years doing Oprah requests for the state to get information regarding how some of our competitors use those rates, et cetera. But I guess I wanted to share just a couple of things so that everybody in this room has some idea, the genesis behind what we've been fighting for 18 years. One of my friends, the Black CEO of ABC of Michigan, believe it or not, Jimmy Green, said to me once, I don't have a problem with racism. He's like, as long as the person who's racist, if you're white, just show up with a white sheet on your face, at least I know what's going on, right? But the worst racism is when you have surreptitious, fundamental, systemic racism, where you don't even know what's happening. So I'm gonna give you a story for everybody in this room so that they can walk away and share this with one other person, because that's all we need to do is continue to educate people about what this system does. So prior to the Civil Rights Act, life insurance companies, in order to make a profit, knew that Blacks who are lower income had worse health, right, lived shorter lives. So they had mortality tables that would say, we should charge them more, give them worse benefits, okay? But when the Civil Rights Act was passed and prohibited the use of race, those same insurance companies that used to ask the question on the application of race, they had to delete it. The only thing they substituted, and this is what they found in the year 2000, this is after the internet, folks, okay? The year 2000, they did a study, and there were life insurance companies in this country that were still using what they substituted for race after 1964, and that is educational attainment and occupation. And so what they used to say for Black people, and stick them in the highest rates for an insurance company with the worst benefits, they substituted for bus boys, shoe shine boys, people with high school diplomas, people with low-paying jobs, and they said, well, that's about as close as Black as we're gonna get. And they did this all the way up to the year 2000, and after they discovered this from the NAIC's investigation in the year 2000, there was a number of class action lawsuits federally around this country that unveiled this practice still occurred. Now, what did I find out in 2004 in the state of New Jersey when they were talking about reform into this state? I found out that Geico came into the state, and they actually have three companies in the state of New Jersey. Everyone thinks, oh, go to geico.com, you're just gonna find a great rate, and if I can spend 15 minutes, I get 15% off my car insurance. Listen, yeah, I found out that there are 3 Geico companies in almost every state that they do business in, unbeknownst to everybody else, right? So what happens is, the question they ask you is, how high of a level of education have you ever obtained? What is your job? And based on a SIC code of whether or not you make money in that job determines whether or not you're sifted into the most expensive Geico company or the cheapest insurance company. Now you'd say, well, why would they do that? Don't they just want to insure everybody? That's where the education needs to start. The largest insurance company in the world for car insurance, collecting over $15 billion a year, they only insure 14% of all the drivers. You don't need to insure everybody to be $1 billion company, okay? So what do they want? They want the most profitable risks. Why would you spend time on somebody that's gonna make you 1 cent when you can make 25 cents from rich people, right? So by adopting this practice, what's odd is my industry didn't fight like me, to stop the practice, they actually join the practice. So now there are insurance companies like Progressive that actually whittle down, well, do you live in a multi-dwelling unit in Newark? Well, that's going to be something that we're going to charge you more for. But how would anybody in this room know about it? Because you know what my industry is dominated by? Publicly traded, multi-billion-dollar companies run by white males. So, you got to follow the dollar. But my point is you need to educate people to understand this is happening, because there is no notice requirement like there is under the FCRA that'll tell you, hey, by the way, you've been rejected not because you're a clean driver for 30 years, but because you have a high school diploma and you're a janitor at a high school. If you don't get that notice, why would you ever tell your legislator? But once the legislature knows about this practice, God damn it, it's their job to do something about it, because that's why you're actually elected. So that's the first thing I'd want to say.
That's the first thing?
I love this guy.
The second thing is just to share a story that when this became public in the state of New Jersey, I took 3 years. I was brought up by a mother that taught me to watch Super Friends and that there were people that only believed in good, right? And I was naive to believe that. I thought I just had to run to one legislator.
1 minute.
And sorry. To make a long story short, my industry came and had an emergency meeting, and they said, Eric, we need to talk to you. This is the front page of the Star Ledger. This is really scaring me. We got on a conference call, the first conference call for my entire industry. They said, we're here to have an emergency conference call because the Star Ledger is talking about the fact that we use education and occupation as a proxy. What is our explanation? Funniest answer from one of my industry executives, what is our explanation? That's number one. Second thing, they come into my office and they say, Eric, we don't understand. Why the hell are you doing this? Why are you talking about this practice? And I said, well, because I think it's wrong. And the guy says to me, well, Eric, you're talking about ethics. We're talking about business. And I said, I didn't know they were mutually exclusive. That's right. So you have to understand that my industry will stop at nothing except for profits. And if we don't hold these legislators accountable, then why are you electing them?
All right, this is great. It's great. The time is winding down, right? So once,
Put Marty over there at the end.
oh man, we could do this all day. So Mayor, once you give your response, we're gonna ask everyone to get a 1 minute response down, then we'll have time for the next panel. So Mayor, you talked about some initiatives that you are working in Atlantic City, and your city is predominantly people of color, and we know the gaming industry is big there, and the reciprocity, I don't think it exists, so we're going to get involved with the gaming industry as well, because they have to give more money back to the city. But that's something the chamber's going to get involved with. But specifically, as you are putting game plans in place, just give us some more specifics of what you're doing to help black people, black contractors, brown people in your city.
Well, first of all, I was always told to be honest and never give the quote politically correct answer. But it's sad to say that black businesses in our community have been a dying breed. Mm-hmm. And prior to casino gaming, black and brown business in Atlantic City carried the community on their backs. We had the days of, the Club Harlem. We had tons of black businesses thriving, and slowly but surely they've been, going away. And as I stated, this is a complete and total rebuild. The mentality is, oh, well, we don't have businesses on Atlantic Avenue. We don't have businesses on the Walk because they have businesses. They got their stuff together. Mm-hmm. We don't. And with the little education programs that we're doing and bringing to the table, we're putting people in positions to succeed. Speaking of development, Busby Village and Stanley Holmes Village are two of the oldest projects in the country. We're rebuilding them. Stanley Holmes is a tear down. Busby is a renovation. It's a $14.4 million contract. So some of the African-American local contractors came to my office and basically said that the job fair that they had was a front. They're not getting anything, so forth and so on. So I went to dinner with the organization, and I told them that we're not accepting that. Mm-hmm. This isn't, the Atlantic City that you used to dealing with where people just do what they want. Mm-hmm. So in 2 weeks, we're going to have a community summit. We're going to have the press there, and we're going to do right by the community. They're already talking about putting together a form of a youth build program, you know, for high school students, and we're going to get our fair share and more of that piece of pie. To change the culture, we started dealing with the building trades. All of those guys supported my campaign. I said, you know, outside of politics, I've been a career youth professional, running the Boys and Girls Club, working in the school system, and other organizations. I have the ties to the children. So we did a pilot program this summer. We chose 10 Atlantic City residents, 9 men and one female. They had to get up and go to Jamesburg for a 3-week boot camp. And now they're all working as a part of Caesar's investment of $400 million in Atlantic City over the next 3 years. Well, 2 years now since the first year has passed. And that's in partnership with Lyona Local 77, the Laborers Union. Paying for workers. You know, it's never enough. When I started working in City Hall as a caseworker in welfare, when I graduated college, I was politically connected to the mayor, and my name rung bells locally. I was a college basketball star, all of that. I got home and got a piece of humble pie. I'm thinking, I'm Marty Small, I'm local, I'm coming out, I'm making 50 grand easy. 19,500, young man, with a degree. And I'm like, people in the casinos are making more than me. So then, as council president and chair for revenue and finance, the city's minimum salary was $22,000. We raised it to $25,500, which is currently today. But when I address the budget, the minimum salary of all jobs in City Hall will be above the minimum wage. I'm not going to give the numbers. I'm going to save that, you know, for the address. But we're making a meaningful impact. And the other thing that I said, and I'm sure Mayor Baraka can say this, we tell children to go to school, get good grades, stay out of trouble, get a good job, and come back home. We haven't had them to come home to nothing. It wasn't a priority, but slowly but surely, you know, we're changing that. You see young people getting opportunities in my administration in City Hall like never before, and these are career jobs. That's how we're changing the mindset and the culture in the great city of Atlantic City. And Atlantic City was hit the most. Casinos were closed for months. And like I told people, how are you going to hire 100% of the workforce when only 25% of the space is open due to COVID? We got world-class convention centers, and because of the letter of the law, they said you can only have 25 people in there. Like, it's 1 million square feet, you know? So, but Atlantic City took a hit with the unemployment rate, but again, it's the mindset. We had scores and scores of jobs available all last summer. You want to know why those jobs weren't filled? It's because of the mentality. People said, I'm going to get that extra $600 a week on unemployment. I ain't going to work. And it's a problem. So now that those subsidies are pretty much gone, we have people that's ready to get back into the workforce. In my administration, we just announced a citywide job, career, and training program in partnership with one of our local colleges that people can come to City Hall. We know everyone can't work in government. We'll have a problem with the taxpayers, but we're going to try to place them with our corporate partners. I mean, we got Stockton, my alma mater, we got Atlantic Care, we got ACCC and other companies in town that are ready to hire and give people a chance. And lastly, a 30-second warning. You know, when you talk to residents, now we already talked about the Busby side and everything, but they say, well, how come, you know, African Americans aren't getting certain contracts in City Hall? Number one, you're not qualified. You know, there's something that you have to do to know how to submit a bid, know how to have the right paperwork. But we're going to teach them. Next month we are hosting a fair at City Hall to get residents to come in, and we're going to have our professionals show them the way, teach them to continue educating the community to put them in a position to bid. Not to say you're going to win, but at least you have an opportunity to bid and do work with government. And that's how we're changing the mindset with African Americans and others in the great city of Atlantic City.
In the great city. All right. We got to bring this train into the station. I'm not even looking to the right. I can feel a laser, right? So, Eric, we're going to start with you. 1 minute. You can say whatever you want to say.
What do I say? Just please contact your legislators and force the issue. There's only a reason why we're able to stand up against our own industry is that we're not a publicly traded company. We're privately held and founded by my parents. So I'm sure that the people who work for my competitors would agree with me in principle, but they have jobs and they have mouths to feed at home. So they have to fall in line. So it's the job of the community to really get their legislators to move on it.
Thank you. Assemblywoman?
My last remarks I'll leave. You've heard of what it is that we're doing, but I just want to invite you all to just join in the work and in the movement, as I know so many of you are. And whenever you have opportunity to help push and to promote and to pull and to mentor, please do so. To help support the legislation, please do so. We any of the laws that I move forward, or I should say about 95% of them, do not happen without the support of the grassroots, and that's right here. So I just invite you to join us, because if we have you on our side, we become way more powerful. And those elected officials, or I should say those politicians, I'd like to see myself as an elected official. Those politicians have to yield to people power every single time.
Power to the people. All right. Mayor?
Yep, about 2 days ago, 54 years from past, Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. The week before he was assassinated, he visited Newark, New Jersey, and spoke to kids at Southside, now Malcolm X Shabazz High School. And most of the things that King fought for, we're still fighting for today. And if they're not rolling them back, we haven't received them yet. That's why it's still necessary to have an African-American Chamber of Commerce. People ask me why that's necessary. James Baldwin said, as long as you think you're white, I'm going to be forced to think I'm black. And so at this stage, though, we should be a lot further along than we are. The job that we're doing is very difficult. The work that we have to do has to be deliberate and intentional, meaning you have to get up every day and do it on purpose. Despite all of the stuff that goes on around you, you have to do it on purpose. And we just take too much time trying to find ways to drag each other down, to find the smallest things to disagree with. There are 10 items on the list. We could disagree on number 8 and number 4, and we walk out the room and say, that's it, we're not working together anymore. It's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard of. We have to end that and begin to figure out how we create united fronts to push what we need forward in terms of policy, in terms of economic development, in terms of political representation, all of those things. Everybody can't be in the same 3 spots that people have given us. Right? People give us 3 spots, we kill each other for those 3 spots. Yeah. As opposed to what's happening all over the state. There's opportunity for us to get engaged and involved all over the state. Yeah. And we have to begin to look for those opportunities and do it together and collectively. At some point, we have to trust each other. At some point, we have to build an agenda. At some point, right, we have to begin to say, this is what we want, or we take nothing, right? We can't keep compromising on things that we know are the foundation of our growth and development of our community. We can't do that anymore. We can't say, I take this while everybody else fail. We have to begin to do it collectively or don't do it at all. And I pray that this is our opportunity to get this done. And I'm going to work in my lane to figure out how to add to it.
I'm going to own my lane. And together we come together in a wider highway like that. Sam?
So there's been lots of discussion today about promoting minority contractors, and I think, John, we have a lot of work to do and lots of initiatives that we can take up after hearing from individuals all day today. Like the mayor said, it's important to lock onto issues and continue to push them forward, and I look forward to continuing to do that with the legislature and your help. One of those issues we mentioned was project labor agreements, which are blatantly discriminatory and are major roadblocks to achieving inclusion, diversity, and equity in the construction space. So I look forward to helping to educate and take down those barriers and make sure that our legislators and our elected officials are aware of these policies and what they do to certain communities and how we can better bolster participation for everyone in the construction realm. Changing the culture of construction and the perception of a career in construction is something that I pride myself on and that I'm really working hard to change. Everybody, at least in my generation, pushed their children to go to college. College is not cut out for everybody. As an adjunct professor, the first thing I ask students is, why are you here? And I always have the students in the back sitting on their hands, and I'll talk to them after, and I'll say, what do you want to do? And oftentimes they weren't given the chance to explore the trades or a hands-on opportunity where they might be better suited. So they're accruing debt and somewhere in their life where they're not necessarily happy and they're not thriving. So trying to get those individuals on track and to be successful and show them that they can have a mentor and be an entrepreneur and be successful is what we're trying to do. So I'm excited to continue working on that.
Thank you. So I get the final word. Give them a round of applause. Right? I just want to add just one more piece on this project labor agreement. Just give you a little education about this, right? Everyone that's a New Jersey resident pays taxes to the state, and that goes into the public treasury, public coffers. I think it was 2004, Governor McGreevey passed an executive order, putting project labor agreements in place on the heels of an $8.5 billion school construction initiative. They had 31 Abbott districts, poor communities that did not have the facilities to educate our communities. $8.some billion, and then was another $4 billion added on later. So at that time I met, not Sam, but other folks from ABC. We met with the governor, we met with NJBIA, and we struck a compromise of $5 million. In other words, if you had a business that was non-union, up to $5 million, you could participate on the public contracts. And so we chose that number because we knew we had limited capacity. And fortunately, in the city of Trenton, we were able to get the first black contract, public contract, was $4.some million. Here we are, almost 20 years later, that number hasn't changed. President Obama had 25 million as his threshold. So our conversations with this administration was, let's just go where Obama was. Let's go halfway. They haven't moved. Now, President Biden has moved it to 35 million, and we're still at 5. All I'm saying is we need to come together. That number has to be higher, right? It has to be higher because we're all paying taxes, but it's not reciprocal. It's not an equitable participation. If 17% of the construction contractors are in the trades, 83 are not, most of the folks look like us or not. And so we have nothing against the 17%. We're saying either bring more of us in or allow us to eat off the money that we put in the treasury. That's all we're saying. The group right now has a preference. They're automatically in all public contracts. And we're just saying, if we're participating, we gave 94% of our vote to this administration, blacks, 86% Hispanic. That's not equitable return. And 1% of public contracts, 3 on a good day, go to black people. That's wrong. God bless you. We'll get ready for the next panel. We'll take a short break.
That's wrong.
Thank you all. Thank you all for participating.